Georgina with the Association of British Paediatric Nurses, and today I'm going to be talking to a children's nurse. We're going to talk all about their life and their experiences of being a children's nurse. I hope you enjoy the video.
Today I'm going to be interviewing Eilidh. So welcome.
Hi.
Why did you want to be a children's nurse specifically?
I think I always knew that I wanted to work with children, and I kind of had to think about the different ways that I could do that. I taught English to children for a while, and then I also worked as like a nanny or support worker for children with additional needs, and I really loved that sort of work. But I find that some of the children I was supporting had quite complex medical needs. And I felt like I was just sort of doing things without really understanding what was actually going on. And I thought, oh, actually, if I trained as a nurse, then I could be working with this same client group, but actually actually understand what I'm supporting and what I'm doing. So that's kind of what led me into children's nursing.
That's a lovely reason to start wanting to know more about what was actually going on. So what did nursing training look like for you?
So I have a degree already. So going into nursing was a second degree. And when I was applying for places, I was really keen to be somewhere that had a children's hospital within its training placements. So I had 2 placements in a dedicated children's hospital, and then the rest of my placements were in like general hospitals that had children's wards. So I think it was quite a good mix to get to see like the difference between, those 2 sort of environments.
Yeah. And did that settle it for you as I definitely want to be working with children?
Oh yeah, definitely. I like working with adults in that like I enjoy working with parents, or grandparents or carers, but I don't think I could be providing care to adults as the main patients as my main job.
What's your favorite part of being a children's nurse?
I think the best thing about being a children's nurse is like when you make an actual connection with a child. Earlier this year, I had a child, you've been caring for them on and off for quite a long time. And it was the week leading up to my birthday. And every time I went into the room, they kept hiding something. And then I said, oh, is everything okay? Do you need help? And she said, oh, only I'm waiting for my mummy because I don't know how to spell your name. Because she'd drawn me a giraffe birthday card.
Oh, that's lovely.
So just little things like that, where I guess where you kind of connect with the child as 2 people rather than as a nurse and a patient.
Oh, that must have been such a lovely surprise.
Yeah, it was really sweet.
What's the best experience you've had as a children's nurse? It might be that one.
That's a super tricky one. But I think the best experience is when I've been caring for a child with quite complex needs who's quite sick, and the parents don't feel comfortable, like they want to be there all the time. And having it's happened a couple of times, but having parents say, oh, it's okay, we're happy to leave now, we trust that you're with them, and that they're not just safe, because you would hope that the child's safe with whoever is caring for them, but that if the child becomes upset, that you'll be able to calm them as well.
Yeah, that must be a really nice feeling to know that they trust you with the most precious thing in their lives. If you could give advice to someone wanting to be a children's nurse, what would you tell them?
I mean, first of all, I think I would say try and get experience of working with children or families in kind of any environment. And secondly, that they need to be good at looking after themselves. So they need to be good at knowing, like, when are they too tired? When do they need to take rest? When do they need to spend more time with their family? Or because it's fine right at the beginning, you can just be like, oh, my life is nursing. But very quickly you can burn out if you do that. So it's really important to be able to put yourself first.
Yeah. And speaking of burnout, what are the biggest challenges you face in children's nursing?
I mean, so there's sort of general nursing challenges, short staffing, being able to take your breaks, all those sorts of things. And then I guess there's also the emotional labor. I think that's it's the emotions of the children, the distress that they might experience, through different procedures, but also the emotions of the parents. So they might be sad or upset. Personally, I find that one okay, but sometimes parents, they might become aggressive or angry. And it's usually that's the way they're processing their sadness or upset. But yeah, that's very difficult. I think that's a very big challenge.
Yeah. When things are hard like that, what keeps you going?
So I think the main thing is having friends who understand. Because if I have a bad day, there's no point in me, phoning my parents. Because their concept of a bad day is very different.
Yeah.
Whereas, other people who've worked in similar situations, if I phone them and just say, oh, I've had a really terrible day, then I don't, I'm not, without giving any details, they know what that might mean.
Yeah.
And they can make, appropriate suggestions or just say, oh, that's really tough. I'm really sorry to hear that.
You were saying that some of the children are obviously quite distressed by things. What do you do to help put them at ease?
So I think one of the main things is planning before you try to do something. So rather than like rushing in with whatever the thing is, you think, okay, could this be a difficult thing for this child? Because, different children are different. And then communicating in a way that's appropriate for that child. So that might be like a communication story, or it might be like using a teddy and the things that you're going to be actually using. It might be getting the play therapist in. And for other children, it might just be, nope, we need to do this thing. Let's go. We're going to do it without too much chatting about it. And then just using distraction whilst you're doing it. Bubbles or the stick song from Hey Doggy that works with teenagers as well. I don't know why. But like knowing what are the kind of key like songs or shows that will distract people.
Yeah. How did COVID change children's nursing for you?
So COVID was a big change for me.
Yeah.
So my patients were shipped out, and I became an adult intensive care nurse.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, so that was a very, very big change. I'd only been qualified for a year. And I guess at that point we were still seeing nurses and doctors, primarily in Italy, who were dying. So it was quite scary, and it felt a bit like being in a war zone. Not that I've been in a war zone, but that
I know
sort
what
of
you mean.
um so but most of the hospital that I worked in was for COVID patients only. Um and we worked in a very different way. So there were some massive positives. Um, Lots of local businesses prepared food for us because they had perishables, obviously.
Yeah.
So they would prepare evening meals for the night staff. And then during the day, the hospital provided food, and we had like a little, like a grocery store for basic supplies. And yeah, the team working, it was very different. So we had like teams who weren't gowned up, and they were making all the complex decisions. And then we had runners like getting equipment on the outside, and then we had runners on the inside taking the equipment to the correct places. But things like, turning a patient, it took 8 adults to do that. So that's a level of teamwork that was very different, and quite positive, to be honest. Like I think we worked together in a really positive way. And I really noticed that afterwards, I became less like, there's always competing demands. Because I went back to children's intensive care after that. There's always competing demands, and I became a lot better at being like, okay, so this is important, but how important? I'm a lot more able to be like, okay, so this is life or death. That's really important. We'll do that. This is really important. And then other things, okay, that's good. We'd like to do that, but we need to prioritize. So I think my prioritization improved. And I think it also really made me understand how important having the family support around the patient is.
Yeah.
Because that's something that we didn't have, at least physically, with our patients during COVID. So we had a lot of patients whose families, they had allocated phone calls or Skype calls, or they were sending in information through designated people that answered the phone, but they weren't there.
Yeah.
And that makes a big difference to patients, either as they were improving in intensive care or patients who were at the end of life. Like not having their family with them, a lot of them not even having somebody that could speak to them in their own language. Like I found that difficult, and it wasn't me in the position,
Yeah. No, it must have been incredibly difficult. It was an awful time, but I really like that you talked also about the positives and the positives that have come out of it for you as well with prioritizing. It's really nice that at least we went through all that, but there are some good things that came out of it. And it's nice to know. So what do you think we should be focusing on in the future?
We need to focus on the well-being of staff. I think that's quite important, because otherwise we're not going to have enough staff. I think there's going to need to be a lot of focus on mental health. I'm seeing more and more, particularly teenagers, but also younger children, with complex mental health presentations. And then I also think that for children with more complex needs or who also have learning disabilities as well as medical needs, that we need to focus a bit more holistically on their kind of lived experience rather than just addressing them as medical issues.
Yeah. And the big question, would you encourage other people to take up children's nursing?
Yes, but I would say that they need to be kind of realistic about the work that they're going into. That although there's lots of fantastic things, it is a very, very difficult job, and they need to be prepared for that.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for watching our video. I've been Georgina with the Association of British Paediatric Nurses. If you enjoyed our video, please give us a like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if you have a question you'd like to ask a paediatric nurse, pop it in the comments below and we'll see if we can ask it in one of our videos. Bye!